Hey YouTube fam, thanks so much for tuning back into my channel. I just want to show you a few modifications for very common yoga postures. Some postures are not always easy for beginners. So I just wanted to show you a few modifications for very common yoga postures like downward facing dog, tree pose, upward facing dog. I was talking to my mom and she was saying how she wanted to start practicing yoga. And I was like, well, you can practice. We don't live in the same state. So I was saying, you can practice with my video. And she was like, Shanae, your videos are too hard. I can't do that stuff. So, and I know that's, common for a lot of other people. You take for granted when you're a person that practices often, you take for granted that everyone can't do downward facing dog or upward facing dog. So just wanted to take a moment to share some modifications that you can use if some yoga postures may be challenging. So yeah, so that's what this video is about. That's the inspiration of this video, my mom. Thanks so much for tuning into my channel. So a very common yoga posture in yoga is downward facing dog. You're going to hear that all the time almost in most yoga practice sequences. You'll hear downward facing dog a lot. So downward facing dog, it's just when you have your hands just shoulder width apart and your feet are about hip width apart and your hips are up. So you look kind of like shaped like a pyramid or triangle. So for some of us, this is not easy because it takes a lot of shoulder strength and arm strength. Not all of us, this is not an easy posture for some of us. So a way to modify is you can bend the knees. So you can bend the knees like this. That's a good modification to help ease some of the tension on the shoulders. You can even rest on one of your forearms like this, if that helps. So that's a nice modification for downward facing dog. This is another common posture in yoga, plank. This is plank pose. So again, if this is too much on the shoulders and the arms, you can always come down onto your forearms like this. Or you can also come down onto the knees. So that's another modification for plank pose. You may also hear forward fold a lot. So forward fold is when you just have your feet together about hip width apart. You raise the arms up, inhale, and exhale, bring the hands down, going into a forward fold. So this is a forward fold. Some people cannot reach the mat or the feet, or some people cannot reach their feet. So a modification is to bend the knees. So you can bend your knees like this to reach the ground, or you can just go as far as you can and touch the front of your legs. So this can be your forward fold. You can come up some all the way up to the knees. So whatever feels best for your body, you come as far down as you can. You'll also hear maybe crescent pose or warrior one, warrior two. Most of those postures involve a lunge, which is when your front knee is bent. So I'll show you crescent pose. So this is crescent pose. The back heel is up and the arms are up. So this is crescent pose. So for some, this may be too much. An option is to come down onto the knee, bringing the right knee down. So coming down onto the knee releases some of the tension on the front leg that's bent. So any type of low lunge posture, you can bring the knee down to the mat to help modify or release some of the tension on the front leg. So another common posture is upward facing dog. You'll hear that a lot also in most yoga flow sequences. And upward facing dog is when you have the legs and the feet just a few inches up off of the mat, and the hands are right in front of you. So again, this might be too much for some. To modify, you can come down onto the belly and then have your hands right next to the chest. And then you just lift the chest up off of the mat and gaze up with the toes pointing back. So this is Cobra Pose, and this is another modification for upward facing dog. Another popular posture in yoga is three-legged dog. You'll see that a lot in Vinyasa Flow, which is kind of like a downward facing dog. So you're in downward facing dog and one leg is up. And sometimes you'll hear the instructor say, bring the knee down to your elbow, and then lifting the leg back up. Exhale, bringing the knee down to the elbow. Inhale, bringing the leg back up. So a modification for that is to have one knee down. You can have the knee down and you're basically in the tabletop position, and you can do those same movements on your knees. So inhale, raising the right leg up. Exhale, bringing the right knee down to the right elbow. Inhale, raising the right leg up. Exhale, bringing the right knee down to the elbow. So doing the same postures on the knees is a great modification for when you're doing a Vinyasa Flow type practice. Side plank. This is side plank. You have both feet together, or you're on one side and one hand is down and you raise one arm up on either your right or left. So this is side plank pose. Modification for this is to bring the left knee down, making sure the chest is open, gazing up, and the right arm is up. So just bringing one knee down to help support you is a nice modification for side plank pose. So a few balancing posture modifications. I'll show you Warrior 3, which is another common balancing posture. Warrior 3 is when you're on one leg, you're extending both arms out, the back leg comes up. So this is Warrior 3. A modification for that is to bring the hands into prayer, into your chest. So this is a modification. You can bring your hands down to your knees. This is another modification. Tree pose. Tree pose is another common balancing posture. So this is tree pose. Normally you would have the sole of your foot into the inner thigh of the leg, and then you bring your hands to heart center. So this is tree pose. So a good modification for that is to bring the foot down. You're still getting the same benefits from tree. The foot is just touching the inner leg or ankle of the opposite foot, and you just make sure you have a nice tall spine with the shoulders back and hands are in prayer. So this is another modification. Just make sure the foot is not on the knee. That's not good for your knee joint. So just make sure the foot is not resting on the knee. And some things to remember: if you deal with wrist pain, if you deal with any type of wrist pain, any postures that involve you using the wrist or applying pressure to the wrist, you can always come down onto your forearms, like plank pose or arm balances or anything that adds pressure to your wrist. Remember, you can always come onto your forearms. If balancing postures are challenging for you, you can always use a wall to support you. So you can go closer to the wall, and just touch the wall to help to support you as you balance. And sun salutations. So sun salutations are when you bring the arms up and exhale, bring the hands down. You come up into halfway lift and step into plank, and you lower into chaturanga, lift up into upward facing dog, and then come back into downward facing dog. That whole sequence, that's a sun salutation. You can just skip those sometimes and just wait for the instructor to say that whatever the next posture is. So you can just rest in whatever pose that you're in and just breathe. If you're in Warrior 1 and Warrior 2, just breathe as you're waiting for the instructor to instruct whatever the next posture is. So you can totally skip the sun salutations if that's easier for you. And always remember, you can rest into child's pose. So whenever you're feeling tired, or if there's a posture that just doesn't work right for your body, you can always just rest into child's pose. And that's just when your knees are bent And you just rest the head down. So this is child's pose. So always remember to come back to child's pose if a posture is too much, or if you're feeling tired or just need to breathe. Remember, you can always come back into child's pose. So that's child's pose. And just remember that it's your yoga practice. It doesn't have to look like anything or to be like anyone else's practice. So just remember that it's your yoga practice. It doesn't matter what it looks like. What matters is how you feel. And always listen to your body. Always, always, always listen to your body. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. Thanks so much for tuning into my channel. I'll see you guys on my next video, and I hope you have a great day or week or weekend, whatever day it is for you, wherever you are. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Peace.